This idea that has been popularized amongst the right in the last 3 years, when analyzed, condemns itself to be none other than a self-contradictory notion. If we take nationalism in its most simple form, it can be defined as the following: recognizing the interest of the nation as primary. If this is the case, this makes nationalism as defined inherently exclusionary by nature of its act of primary duty toward its own interest. To be one is none other than one, which is to exclude anything else that is not itself. To recognize the interest, it requires the recognition that its priority is first, and as first, it excludes all others, especially insofar as those other interests get in the way of the one. Therefore, what is held as primary can only be one by definition. It is to say this and not that. To argue that more than one is primary is to argue that more than one can be held univocally. But if they are more than one, they cannot be one. If something is primary, it is in some respect omnipresent or universal. It is first and foremost and can be none other. If it is sometimes first, then it is not really first, since to be first in terms of importance is to remain so. To do otherwise is to see the identity of primacy sublated. Take the following. If nation A and nation B both have interests, and one calls themselves a nationalist for A, but also a nationalist for B, he is, in effect, saying both interests are held and pursued as legitimate and equal. However, if the two interests are different, then they are not one, and thus to pursue both as equal is to say they are one, but also not. Thus, in the recognition or the pursuit, we see two positions held which exclude one another. I put A as primary, and I put B as primary. But A and B are both, in respect to themselves, their own unities distinct from one another, and both A and B cannot at the same time hold the status of first rank, since each, in their distinction, entail the inability to both hold the identity of being the same in terms of their status. If A is held in terms of first order of interests, this means any other interest is at least not first. Likewise with B, if A's existence is to be pursued at all costs, which is what it means to be prime, this means even coming at the expense of B, and likewise if B takes the place of A, then A is subject to the pursuit of B. Yet if both are taken to be primary, or of the same importance, is to contradict the primacy granted toward it. The only way around this is to say both A and B's interests are one, but if that is so, then the distinction between the two should be undone, and neither of them can be said to be nations with their own interests, since to say a nation exists is also to say it has an interest to some extent. In short, A and B cannot be held to be the same in the same respect. Certainly a nation may pursue nationalism for another, but this is only ever done insofar as it doesn't harm the nation pursuing it. If it did, then it would not occur, since nations do act in their own interests naturally. It should also be taken that what I'm speaking of here should not lead one to geopolitical psychopathy. You can pursue interests within moral reason, and to do it outside of moral reason is often just detrimental to the pursuit of interest, for example, becoming a pariah state. In closing, if nationalism for all nations means letting all nations do as they please, then it follows that if a nation wishes to be against nationalism for another, then nothing can stop it from doing so. If it is forbidden, then this means the nation cannot act in its own interest, which contradicts the essence of nationalism. Furthermore, if we hold the interest of all to the same degree, what are we to do when the interests contradict one another? To pursue any particular one is to contradict the interests of the other, and thus to contradict nationalism in some sense. To hold all the interests as valid, to pursue when the interests are juxtaposed, is a self-contradiction. This notion leads to self-contradiction. Distinct interests cannot be held as one when they are not one. Yet, that is what this worldview entails. I am to pursue the interests of all, but in this pursuit I must contradict all of them, which means I am no longer pursuing them. If England and France's interests are to be permitted equally, and I am English, this means I must simultaneously support both when they contradict. This is absurd.